You know, I've been really harsh on Checo of late. Really, really harsh. Overcritical, some may say. Bully settings. Meritocracy is all that concerns F1 ultimately, and that is the bottom line. But I have gone hard. Criticised him for yeeting it into the barrier. I've been picking fights off of everybody. Checo Perez fans on the internet, Facebook, Twitter, et al. So I think it's time that I deployed just a smidgen of empathy, just a smidgen. And so with that in mind, I think it's just about time that I take a step back, deploy aforementioned empathy, and take this opportunity to say that from the bottom of my heart, I want to apologise to absolutely nobody. What do you mean, Checo Perez? This dude should have been gonzo ages ago. No te rindas, cabrón. It's finished. Se acabó. Caput. It is a wrap. It's been a wrap for Checo Perez, for Pete's sake. Go on, non-rhetorical question. How is he still in F1? If Logan Sargent's gone, Danny Rick is gone. Checo Perez, how are you still here, chap? Now, I know that the $30 million a year doesn't hurt. So too does the timing of his documentary that talks about resilience and his ability to overcome and face down adversity. You've got to bake these things in. Pictured not long with the 50% Thai owners, the Yavidra family. That also helps his ability to curry favour with one Christian Horner, if not with Dr. Helmut Marko of Red Bull GmbH. Of course, you've got to factor these things in, but surely in F1, where excellence is all that matters, at some point, this material underperformance that has so characterised the last 24 months in Checo Perez's kit, at some point has to catch up with him. And I think we're seeing that in real time, ladies and gents, because Christian Horner, having beaten around the bush a very many times now, they flip-flopped have Christian Horner and Dr. Helmut Marko. Once upon a time, it was like, we're going to give him more time. Baku and Singapore are tracks around which he goes well historically. You don't sack the Mexican Minister of Defense before those two Grand Prix. Give him a chance. He was brilliant as per usual at Baku, but then Singapore again, the old underperformance of the material variety rears its ugly head. And I think Christian Horner has had enough now. I think we're seeing the end, the sword of Damocles that Red Bull have been so eager and keen to wield, as far as Daniel Kvyat before him, Alex Albon too, as with many others, Pierre Gasly too. I think this is now a stay of execution as far as the Mexican Minister of Defence. Christian Horner said he was going to give him a chance. They were due to sack him on the 29th of last month, had a meeting with Dr. Helmut Marko at London, and they decided not to. Some say on the back of Liberty Media, advising them that the timing isn't right. The documentary is out celebrating F1 and is not in substantial ability as the Mexican Minister of Defence to overcome adversity. Don't sack him on the day when this doc comes out. Mexican Grand Prix, 27th of October settings. Why would you sack him then? All of Mexico will be in attendance, having already bought their tickets to see their hero. Liberty Media, for Liberty Media, the optics of this sacking, the timing of, do not make sense. But ultimately, at some point, the chickens have to come home to roost. Do you know what I mean? Some point, performance has to matter. On a long enough timeline, the survival rate of the material underperformance as far as F1 peddlers is zero. Danny Rick is gone. Logan Sargent is gone. Latifi gone. So Checo Perez, why are you still here? Christian Horner is now singing from the same hymn sheet. He's had enough. Here's what he's had to say going into the USA Grand Prix this weekend, that we desperately need answers as far as Checo Perez's underperformance. The divergence between him and Maximilian Verstappen is too material for them to shoulder any longer. 187 points is the difference between Messrs Perez and Maximilian Verstappen in the same RB20 car. Explain that to me. 187 points over the course of 18 races. That's ridiculous. That is daft. You can't do that's a lick of 10 points per session, per race weekend, a difference. It's that That's the extent to which Max Verstappen is gapping the Mexican Minister of Defense. And you can't tell me that's acceptable. I don't care about your confirmation bias. Why? Because on this channel, we will never, no, never, ever sacrifice objectivity nor truth value at the altar of partisanship, favoritism, or confirmation bias. I don't care how big a Checo Perez fan you or anybody else is. As at October 2004, you can't make the case for keeping Checo Perez. He's flotsam and jetsam F1. Indeed, there is more risk to Red Bull as a sporting enterprise around the Constructors' Championship. So to the drivers, to keeping Checo Perez, the man they know as the Mexican Minister of Defense, than jettisoning him. Get rid of him. The Colapinto effect is also something that we've got to factor in. These new young hungry drivers are increasing the opportunity cost of missing out on the next gen driver. A Colapinto, a Teo Porcher, a Drogovic, a Behrman, a Kimi Antonelli. Need I go on? And that's the context around which you now hear Christian Horner in the lead up to this weekend's Grand Prix saying this. We desperately need answers around Checo's underperformance, he told motorsport.com. He continues, when you look at our opponents, Ferrari will be strong next year with Sir Lewis, Carl Davidson, Hamilton and modern day Jean Alesi, plus McLaren. Happy birthday, by the way, Charles. Do you know what I mean? Happy birthday, chap. Plus McLaren with Lando and Oscar. They are a strong lineup. So strong that we can't afford to be carrying any dead weight in the form of Checo Perez or any other. Danny Rick has gone. Checo Perez, I think his time is a-coming. And here's the clincher, the deal breaker as far as Christian Horner's statements. He says we need to make sure that both of our drivers, that there's not a big gap between them. Because as at October 2024, we can't afford it. The stakes are thus. The constructors, that's on the line. McLaren now nailed on, odds on favourites. The drivers too. Checo Perez can't afford to do a Valtteri Bottas in 2021 and not show up, because Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, Charles Leclerc are sharks. They are circling. Lando Norris desperately wants to bridge that 52-point gap in the Drivers' Championship. Checo Perez, therefore, needs to be rear gunner to one Maximilian Verstappen, does he not? If he can't offer him that, then what is the point keeping him? Checo Perez had the right to reply, exercised it, saying thus, I've been training hard back home in Mexico and I am in regular touch with the team back in the UK. Checo Perez, mate, training hard for what? What exactly, chap? What are you training for? Go and book in another session with Rob Wilson, surely. It's your driving, chap, as much as your match fitness. I know you've been training of late. You look fitter. I can see your cheekbone finally with a view not to fat shame. This matters. Effort is important. But bloody Nora, chap, you crash every single race. For Pete's sake, do you remember in Miami when he nearly yeeted it into his teammate Maximilian Verstappen, reminiscent of one Valtteri Bottas in 2021? Turkey said, did you remember that? What is he doing, this chap? Do you remember Mexico last year when he thought that he had a brave pill and tried to become Michael Schumacher round the outside? DNF yet again. The instances as far as Checo Perez's errors and his ineptitude as at the 16th of the 10th, 2024 are too multitudinous. If indeed we're in a court, you would have to declare this chap guilty beyond reasonable doubt. He continues, we are looking to come into Austin in a better place with the car. We've made some changes in the brake aimed at improving the pace, and we'll see how competitive we are in Austin. We are, Checo. Incorrect, sir. We will see how competitive you are, because your teammate, for the avoidance of doubt, if anybody's keeping count, is leading the championship as at October. He hasn't had the best car for God knows how many races. It's hard to compare anyone on the grid to Maximilian Verstappen. So good is that chap. We saw 2021. So it's always going to be a poison chalice to sit alongside the Dutchman in that car. But it's not that you're being beaten by one Max Verstappen. This is a problem, a difference even in extents. Checo, Perez are not kinds. F1 is no place for old men, nor for the materially underperforming. Checo Perez, mate, there is more to life than F1. Your old man's not been well. You have yourself another baby on the way. Settle back into that lifestyle, sir. You're a family man now, a father. You don't need to race these cars at a gazillion miles an hour. When you start talking about the R word, when I say R word, of course I mean retirement. You are therefore retired. The rumour is that as far as the optics being perfect, that Checo Perez will find himself retired post the Mexican Grand Prix as at October the 27th. And I couldn't think possibly of a better outcome, a better eventuality as to how this dude can round off his career. Short of that, sadly for Checo Perez, the man formerly known as the Mexican Minister of Defense, I don't think this episode, his career, his tenure at Red Bull Racing, the house that Christian Horner built, I don't think it's going to end well, you know. I just don't think so. It cannot. It will not. Checo Perez, throw in the towel, chap. Owe the humanity.